Okay, so try not to focus on the fact that my apartment is really messy and that my bangs are too long.
You are.
We had a few questions from Katie. Let me pull them up here. The first would be about social networking as part of like the ecology of a campus. 180 or the next question was about how I can help students become more self-authored. And the last one is 4 S's of a transition. So, yeah. So I think the first one was how can social media be a part of the ecology? 174. I thought it was really interesting. Some of, I guess I liked the point that Katie made that students can, that's almost like social media is usually the first piece that we have, or that an incoming first-year student is going to have about the experience. And I think very much it becomes a part of the ecology because there's no way that we can ask a millennial to separate themselves from the emotional connection that they feel from social media. So, but one thing, I do think that is really good, and here's why. Like in the first full paragraph, that peer cultures are notoriously resilient to intervention by administrators. And I thought that was a really interesting thing to say because I do agree. I think administrators can like start hashtags like hashtag love VSU. I just came up with that right now. Or hashtag when we were trying to come up with like the hashtag for why people should live on campus again. Like hashtag home sweet VSU. I think the way that social media can be shaped is really important, so it's a really important and essential part of a modern ecology or 21st century campus ecology. And I think that's been seen a lot with VSU's campus. President McKinney and Dr. Charlesworth are very aware of social media, and students know that they can reach them on social media and feel emotionally connected to the things that are happening in their lives, the same way that I feel emotionally connected to the things that are happening in Honey Boo Boo's life through Twitter. That happens with them, and I think that creates a greater connection to the university as well as a greater connection to them as leaders. So I agree. I like the assessment that you gave, Katie, but that was just sort of my next one. 187. Working through how to help students become more self-authored. So I'm going to pull up my page here. By that I mean turn to it. Looking here at 187, or 186 and 187. So in here it was the elements of self-authorship that Baxter McGolda identified. And I guess the 3 elements that she identified were trusting the internal voice, building on an internal foundation, and securing internal commitments. So generally helping students think introspectively. But I think those, right now, I'm going to talk about my role right now because I feel the most connected to the experience that I have right now as a graduate student. I think each of these can happen in important teachable moments that I have with residents. So I think, for example, there are students who maybe will come to me with like a roommate conflict, and part of the helping skills that we do would be asking them about, how have you treated a situation like this in the past? And that would be helping them to foster an internal voice. So by asking them, well, how do you feel about this situation, and how have you handled this in the past, and how have you been successful, and can you learn from things that you've done in the past? That fosters that internal understanding of what they should do according to their own internal compass, internal foundation. Conversations that I have with residents a lot, especially like sophomore students, would be asking or kind of trying to understand their own personal understandings of the world. So they'll look at things that they see around them and they'll start to question things. And I definitely think that's indicative of some of like the Perry or other pieces that we've read where students start to see things in more than just black and white. They see them in shades of gray. And I think, for an example, students will learn something about something that's happening in the world around them. Maybe that's something that's happening in politics where there's a clear, maybe moral dilemma. How does that person think about similar experiences, and how can they refine the way that they experience new situations? A student who wants to talk about abortion and helping them think about well, this is how I feel about a similar, like maybe this is how I feel about a situation that takes into consideration similar problems or similar moral dilemmas, and how can that be translated into this and help me refine it. The securing internal commitments. Participants felt that living their convictions was as natural as necessary and breathing. So that's the way that I kind of interact with every moment of my life, rather than just like situational. So helping to foster integrity, I guess, would be that for me, because that would mean that you were meeting this, you know, if I were to meet this person at 2 a.m. and at 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. in the afternoon, I would be meeting the same person every time. So the 4 S's on page 216 and 17. I'm going to talk about a student, not my own experience, but an experience that I had with a student who is transitioning, who is making, because I'm really interested, I think, in students who are transferring. So I'm going to talk about a resident that I had when I was an undergrad, who her name was Lauren, and she transferred to the University of Iowa from going to a small community college, and like the experience that she had doing that. So first one, situation, she had decided to transfer into the University of Iowa as a junior after attending like a junior college for 2 years. She decided to do it because it just felt like it was like what she had planned to do. And the University of Iowa, I think, is where she had intended to go the whole time, but then had not done it because she couldn't afford to the first time around. Lauren was a white, I would say lower middle class woman, who was kind of in the process of like coming out, and that's why I think her story, or the experience that I had knowing her, was so important to me. But she was trying to come out as a lesbian during that time, and she had also experienced a lot of people maybe telling her, like her parents. She was a first generation student. Her parents, I don't think, seemed particularly invested in her going to college, and I think that had been ever present in her life. Like, I don't think that when she was a child, her parents ever said, someday when you go to college. The support, I think the structures that I saw for Lauren were her support structures were very tenuous. She was leaving her friend support system, she'd lived like with her parents until this point, so she was leaving like her high school friend support system. The support system that she had at the junior college was called Hawkeye Community College, as well as her parents, who for the first time were going to live, I think they lived about an hour and a half away, which for her I think felt very far away. I don't think that she was fully out enough to feel comfortable with finding support structures within like an LGBTQ center, and also she lived in a residence hall, which was almost at 65 first year students, like 35 upperclassmen students, and I think that kind of made it more challenging for her to connect with the community itself. For Lauren, in this stage that I was meeting her, she did not have a lot of support. She didn't have really like a significant other or any like close ties to the university. I think she knew a couple people from high school, but like didn't really know that many people. So anyway, in this, it kind of sounds like a recipe for somebody like not connecting to the university. But I think the more important piece, so I think she maybe didn't get the experience of like going to a strong first year orientation where they were like best friends, hold hands, everyone, and didn't really have that experience of like falling in love with the University of Iowa. She didn't really have strong support structures. She was a first generation student whose parents were not super invested in her going to college. I think each of those is sort of like a recipe for a student not being successful in college, but I think the self is what really shaped this identity, because for her, being educated was such an important part of her coming out experience. I don't think she would have been able to do that if she had not gone to college. I think this strategy is what, so her like connection to me, so connection to like one person, as well as like helped her build a connection with the rest of the community, because she did become better friends with like a lot of the RAs and stuff that year, but I don't think that if she had not had that one identity, it would have been as easy for me to connect with her and for her to connect with a lot of other people on like the RA staff or anything. So I think that would kind of where Schlossberg was talking about why certain people interact with certain situations in different ways and why one person would interact in a different way. I think that was the identity that really helped her connect to the University of Iowa. So it was great. I'm glad. I'm sorry this vlog has been so long. I'm going to try and cut it down a little bit, but have a great weekend or week, everyone. It's Monday, and I'll see you in class tomorrow. Bye.